Andariel's Puncture Flurry build is back in Season 5 and better than ever. You can see here it can pretty much instantly blow up any of the torment bosses, including Lilith. Here you can see that it has incredibly fast stagger speed. The first 3 staggers are pretty much instant on a boss, and then after that the staggers take around 25 to 30 seconds, which is probably one of the fastest stagger times in the game for a single class. And you can see that it does pump some pretty big damage, about 4 billion or so per tick. And this Season 5 has the new Horde mode, and this build does not disappoint there either. It's able to do easily through Tier 8, clearing all the mobs very quickly, as well as the bosses that get summoned, and even the Butcher that could get summoned. There is no issues there. As the bosses, when they get summoned, they get staggered very quickly, as we saw in the previous clip, and then die shortly thereafter. And the bosses themselves are also not a problem and can be killed very quickly. So here you can see what that gameplay looks like as I basically bounce around from mob to mob and simply having poison nova explosions that are proccing all the time due to our extremely high lucky hit chance. This build can have up to about plus 200% lucky hit chance due to the new Fists of Fate gloves. If you can get a good roll on those and some good Masterwork procs, then you can get the lucky hit chance to be so high that you basically are proccing Andariel's extremely quickly. And here you can see the bosses here, the council, and you can see me making short work of those as well. And this build is extremely fun to play. It's very easy to play, and it definitely will be able to do any of the content in this game, no problem. And here's a specialty setup that is a lot of fun. It uses evasion in order to kill the mobs using the new Shroud of Kandura's chests, as well as Metamorphosis, because both of those have actually a hidden 100% lucky hit chance. So just by evading through the mobs with Metamorphosis and then the pull, you have a very high chance of proccing Andariel's, which is why as you see them get pulled together, they end up blowing up and dying. So this allows sort of an alternative fun playstyle to simply evade around the map, dash around the map, and killing everything very quickly. And I've been able to do runs in about 1.5 minutes on T100. I've set up 5 variations of this build that get increasingly harder to play. I'd recommend using the starter build right when you get your Andariel's. Very easy setup, similar to Season 4's setup. Uses Flurry. Then, once you get Tyrael's Might, then this is going to make the build more tanky. It's going to optimize this for things like high hordes, pit farming, hell tides, etc. Then you can use the optimized setup. Still uses Flurry. Then, once you get enough attack speed, then you actually don't really need Flurry anymore, and we can add some more damage to the build using Poison Trap. And instead of using Flurry to proc close quarters combat, we can just use Shadow Step. Then, if you want a harder playstyle, then you can switch to the Giga Damage, which is going to add Dex gems to your gear, as well as using the legendary chest to get more damage through concussive strikes. And this is going to be a bit squishier, but I really enjoy it because you can really get some big numbers with this. Then we have the evasion speed variant, which is what you saw in that previous clip, which uses things like Metamorphosis and the new chest piece here. All of the details, what's different, what's changed, things like that. It's all in the planner here on Mobalytics. How do we play this? So the basic engagement is pretty simple. So as you're running toward it, you can hit your Shadow Imbue, and then when you get closer, you can hit Flurry to teleport in, and then simply start spamming Puncture. And you'll notice that everything gets frozen due to shared misery, and everything gets CC'd due to our Fists of Fate gloves with all the different CC types there that you see popping off there. Okay. Now, if it's, say, a harder pack, if you're pushing, then what I would do is I would run up and drop caltrops, or I could teleport in and then drop caltrops, either one, and then, again, start attacking like so, and then after we attack, throw down your smoke grenade, and also pop a potion for a really hard pack. So what this might look like is something like this. So I would run up, drop it, flurry back in, drop my smoke grenade and my potion, and then everything would be dying. Now, let's talk about why this does so much damage. Well, one of the reasons has to do with the synergy between Fists of Fate and Shared Misery and Creeping Death. So if we read it, you'll see that Creeping Death deals 40% increased damage over time to enemies for each crowd control effect they are afflicted by. So if we can get more crowd control effects on the enemies, well then we get more damage. So one crowd control effect, 40%, two crowd control effects, 80%, 3, 120%, etc., etc. Now, I tested Fists of Fate, and Fists of Fate can actually put 7 different crowd control effects on the enemy by itself. So that would be Daze, Stun, Freeze, Chill, Frozen, Immobilize, and Stun. And so we got 7 of them there. So simply, once I start attacking, you'll see all the different effects being applied, and then Shared Misery is going to spread those to enemies randomly. And because we're attacking 6 times with Puncture every time I cast, it's going to spread all this extremely fast. As you can see here, it's pretty much instantly. Right? Everything's frozen, everything's dazed, etc., etc., etc. And then we do about 7 times 40% more damage just from Creeping Death, or 280% more damage. So pretty huge synergy there. In this guide, I'm mainly going to be talking about the optimized setup / starter setup, and let's talk about the skills. So we take Puncture. This is the main way that we proc Andariel's Visage. And then we take Flurry. This is just a nice quality of life thing to proc close quarters combat. It also gives us a nice little mobility dash now, and it heals us. And if you take combo points, it also gives you attack speed. Once you get enough attack speed on the gear, which we'll talk about later, then you can switch to Inner Sight. Then we also take Shadow Imbuement. This just makes us do about 12% more damage, non-physical damage, that we can apply using Flurry or Shadow Step. Smoke Grenade now has been changed from Season 4 to actually work on bosses, so this is just a nice 25% damage increase. And then also Shadow Step we take for additional mobility, and it is the only way that we have to break crowd control. And then Caltrops is mainly used for that 45% damage buff. So when we place that there, it stacks up and eventually makes us do 45% more damage. And it also applies Chill, eventually freezing the mobs. And that's pretty useful for bosses, so it helps us stagger a bit faster as well. As well as Smoke Grenade and Shadow Step can also help us stagger faster with the Stun and Daze, respectively. All right, let's talk about gear. So from Season 4, there is a few gear changes. So first off, one of the big changes that you'll notice on my gear is damage per Dark Shroud Shadow. And before we used to use a lot of crowd control percent, but we are now going to use the Dark Shroud damage there because it is so incredibly high this season that it is going to be better than the CC percent. So you can see I have that on my bow, both of my daggers here, have it on my rings. I would like it on my amulet, though I don't have it on my amulet. And that is about it for there. And then another big thing is Fists of Fate. So Fists of Fate gives us a lot of lucky hit chance. This preferably we want to try and get a greater affix on that, and then get lots of the Masterwork crit rolls for additional lucky hit chance. Those are really the big changes from Season 4. If you'd like to take a look at them, we've got Andariels, Tyraels. If you don't have Tyraels, you can just use a chest like this that has Dark Shroud ranks on it, though probably Tyraels is easier to get than that other chest, honestly, nowadays. And then we have the pants here that we take Umbrus in order to get the Dark Shroud around us. So simply just by hitting, get those Dark Shrouds on us. And this season they changed it so that you can only lose one Dark Shroud every 1.5 seconds. So we don't really need as much dodge anymore. Which is why another thing you'll notice is that I'm not taking quite as much dodge anymore on my gear. So for example, on my pants, I'm taking the max life while Dark Shroud is active instead of dodge percent. And then on the boots, I'm taking Shared Misery. Shared Misery is extremely important, and we'll talk about some synergies in a bit here with Creeping Death. So another nice addition to the build this season is Creeping Death, and we'll talk about how this works exactly in just a moment. And then on my daggers, I have the Pestilent Points that is going to make our daggers poison imbued every third hit, which then allows us to proc Bursting Venoms. And Bursting Venoms has a chance to proc Andariels. So a lot of people wonder, like, why take Bursting Venoms? Well, Bursting Venoms has sort of a hidden lucky hit chance, and it can proc Andariels, and this can help us do a lot more damage, especially versus groups of mobs. And another thing that's interesting to note about Bursting Venoms is that it can also proc all of our CC effects. So like this lucky hit chance to proc a random crowd control effect. It has a random chance of proccing that as well. And which this can help us stagger faster. Along with it can also proc the things like the lucky hit chance to stun. So then on our ring, we take Cold Clip. This is just another nice little addition to help us freeze a little bit faster, but also make us do 20% more damage when they're chilled or frozen. And then Retribution. This makes us do more damage when the enemies are stunned or knocked down. One change is that we used to have to take this on our main hand two-hander because it used to double dip while it was stunned and knocked down, but this was fixed this season, so this is not quite as good as last season, so we don't need it on our two-hander anymore. And then on my amulet, I am taking Noxious Ice for a nice 53% additional damage to frozen enemies. Now let's take a look at the skill tree here. So we take Puncture through Fundamental Puncture, then we are taking 3 Ins 30. We don't need Siphoning Strikes because we get all of our healing from Andariels. And then Flurry, we take through Improved Flurry for the additional dash and 10% to max life, which is nice for mobility. Then we take Discipline Shadow Step, and this is actually really key if you want to use the no Flurry setup, because it's going to reduce the cooldown by 3 seconds. So notice here the cooldown is normally 9 seconds, then it reduces it by 3 seconds, which is really important because close quarters combat, in order to activate it, you have to use a cutthroat skill every 8 seconds. So it's going to have only a cooldown of 6 seconds, so you can actually proc this just with Shadow Step every 6 seconds because of Discipline Shadow Step, which then can allow us to drop Flurry, which then allows us to pick up Poison Trap in that higher damage setup using no Flurry if you choose that route. Then we can take 1 into Rugged just for a little bit more dot reduction, and then Caltrops through Methodical for that additional stagger on bosses. Then we take Smoke Grenade through Countering. Countering allows us to use our Smoke Grenade more often. Note that you do need to hit an elite or a boss in order to get that reduced cooldown. Then we have Dark Shroud through Countering Dark Shroud. It really doesn't matter which one you pick. This one will give us a little bit more damage. This one will give us a little bit more healing. It's not really a huge deal. You could even get rid of this point if you really wanted to. It wouldn't really be that big of a difference. Then Shadow Imbuement through Mixed Shadow Imbuement for the extra 12% damage. Then we're going to take 3 points into here, more damage, 3 points into Debilitating, and then Alchemical Advantage got changed this season, so this is a nice boost to both our lucky hit chance and our attack speed. And this is also why we no longer need the rapid aspect, because this is going to give us that 30% that we would have gotten from the rapid aspect if you can get Alchemical on your amulet. And then we have Frigid Finesse. You'll notice I have 9 in here. That's because I have +6 on my amulet. You definitely want to get Frigid Finesse on your amulet because this is just a huge damage boost, 90% more damage. And then we have Innervation because we want to take Alchemist Fortune, that is. And this is going to give us 15% more lucky hit chance with our non-physical damage. Our non-physical damage is going to come from things like, for example, Bursting Venoms, and then because we also take Cold Clip, now all of our punctures are doing ice cold damage, so non-physical, so they get that 15% extra lucky hit chance as well. And then we take Close Quarters Combat, which is going to give us 30% more attack speed, and it's going to give us more damage because of having some crowd control percent increase. And where do we get that crowd control percent? Well, we get that from our Paragon board. So on our Paragon board, we have a good amount of crowd control percent damage increase from our cheap shot board here. So all of these nodes here, for example, give us crowd control damage percent. All right, let's take a look at the Paragon board here. So we take Tracker to give us 40% longer duration on our Andariels, basically making us do 40% more damage. Then we take Canny for more damage on our Exploit Weakness board. And then up here, we're going to take Fluidity. This gets activated whenever we use Caltrops or Shadow Step on the No Witness board. And this is also going to work nicely because it gives us lots of max life as well. And then we take Bane, which is going to give us a chance to double our damage, 15% chance on each poison tick on the Eldritch Bounty board. So that is really nice as well. And then we're going to take Cheap Shot and the Control Glyph, which is going to give us a lot more crowd control percent, as well as more damage when enemies are frozen or stunned. And then we take the Ambush Glyph. If you'd like, you can use the Exploit Glyph as well, wherever that is. There it is, Exploit Glyph. And I'd recommend using this actually for speed runs where stuff is dying really fast, or even hordes, just to apply vulnerable really quickly. And then I would use ambush more for things like harder content. And then you also take Deadly Ambush, which is going to increase the damage that enemies take by 23% when they're in a trap. And this is still technically bugged. This should not be working because it should only work when mobs are hit by critical strikes, but it's working for all damage still as well. All right, let's talk about attack speed. So if you want to not have to use combo points anymore, or not have to worry about using Flurry every 3 seconds to get up to attack speed buff, which is a little annoying to do, then I would recommend using Inner Sight and then getting 68% attack speed on your gear. So Andariel's got a buff, and it can get quite a bit of attack speed now on it. If you get 2 Masterwork crits, then you can get, I think it's 58% if I remember correctly. And then if you get a decent roll on your Fist of Fate, then you can get up to 68%, and you no longer need Flurry. If you get a bad roll like I did, 5.2%, then what I had to do is put attack speed on my ring as well in order to reach that 68% total. Then another thing is on your amulet, if you can get alchemical advantage, then you can completely replace the need for the rapid aspect, because with 6 alchemical, 3 plus the 3 points that you put in, then you can get 30% attack speed, which is the same as rapid in the cap speed 2. Now, even if you don't get alchemical, you're only going to lose 1 frame or about 10% damage. So I'd still recommend using something like retribution or cold clip over rapid anyways. But alchemical will get you that 1 extra attack speed frame, which is pretty nice. Alright, so now let's say you have enough attack speed on your gear and you want to get rid of Flurry. You can do that to get even more damage by using Poison Trap for an extra 15%. And then now what the playstyle is going to look like is you're just going to use Shadow Step whenever it comes off cooldown, which is every 6 seconds. And what you'll do is basically walk on in, drop Caltrops, Shadow Step in, and then start attacking like so. Drop your Smoke Grenade, drop your Poison Trap, and keep on attacking. When Shadow Step comes off cooldown, Shadow Step again, and then continue attacking. Hope you guys enjoy this build as much as I do this season, and feel free to hit that like and subscribe button if you feel like this helped you out. And if you want to sometimes get notifications, I sometimes put community posts out with additional information as I find out, or drop the build early on there before making videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.